welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my 2025 stats and goals wrap up and setting my goals for 2026. Not that there's going to be a huge amount of goal setting, but that's as you wish. So, as usual, my total reading goal for 2025 was 120. I achieved this on the last day, as usual, which is why for 2026, it's not going up, it's staying at 120, because that seems to be about my limit as to how much I can read, even when there's like short stuff. So, I achieved that goal. Woohoo! So my stats for the year, well, I read 120 books, as I said. 110 of them were, I was looking at 2024. So, in 2025, 107 were fiction, 10 were not fiction, and 3 were poetry. So that is a slight change in that I still did, non-fiction is exactly the same as 2024, but I read 3 less fiction books and 3 more poetry collections. It's because I didn't read any poetry at all in 2024. So, still pretty stable fiction to non-fiction with, some variations on poetry. So 31 of the things that I read were short fiction in some way, either individual bits of short fiction or novellas. I'd say anthologies, but I'm not actually sure if I read any anthologies, and Uncanny Magazine issues. So some variation of short fiction. 31 was what I read in 2025, which was up on 23 from 2024. So similar, but up a bit. In terms of graphic novels, it stayed the same. I read 2 in 2024 and I read 2 in 2025, which I'm fairly sure in both those cases they were rereads of Check Please, because I'm not reading a lot of graphic novels right now. I occasionally continue Lumberjanes. I've sort of vagued out of Marvel a little bit, and there just hasn't been much else on my plate in terms of graphic novels, so that might be something I can improve on. We'll see. There might be more this year because there is apparently going to be a new year of Check Please. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. In terms of the gender of the writers, I was down on male authors. So from 20 in 2024, I went down to 16 male authors, books by male authors. I read 98 by female authors, which was up from 1991 in 2024. And 6 I have listed as either both male and female, unknown or non-binary authors, which was down a tad from 9 in 2024. Yes, that will probably, I think, can probably go down the further on I get in Uncanny, because I believe Lynn M. Thomas has stepped back as an editor, so it's being edited just by Michael now, and that was a lot of my both. But, still pretty stable numbers, majority female authors. This is me, you know me. So in terms of audiobooks, I read 9 books via audio in 2025, which was down 1 from 2024. In terms of rereads and new stuff, I read 12 rereads officially in 2025, which was down from 14. I do not include rereads of Jane Austen Variations because I read them like candy. I don't even log them anymore if it's a reread. I only log them if it's a new one. And therefore, I was slightly up on new reads, 108 compared to 106 in 2024. And so then you get to my other goals. So, as usual, my goal was to try and reduce my physical TBR. I did not. It increased by 2. So it went from 194 at the start of 2024 to 196 at the start of 2025. This is going to be my goal again. I have actually already made progress for this year, but yeah, it is still technically going up, which is a failure, but not by much, by 2 books. So I'm about on parity in reading from my physical TBR, or at least reading enough reading the books that I buy, which is not a lot of physical books at the moment, but we'll see how we go in 2026. So that will again be a goal, to try and reduce my physical TBR. And then there's my diversity goals. So I always try and improve. This year I did not, but I got close. So in 2024, I read 24 books by non-white authors. In 2025, I read 20, so down 4, but still hovering at that sort of 20 out of 120. That's like a sixth. You know, a sixth of the books that I've read are still, you know, non-white authors. So yeah, it may not have been done so well because I didn't check it. I also didn't check in mid-year, so I had no idea where I was at. So hopefully this year I can keep track of that a little bit better. Yeah. And then the other goal that I have diversity-wise is books with not necessarily main characters or queer stories, but a noticeable queer character or queer story, even if it's like a B plot line. And that I read 21 in 2024 and was down 2 to 19 in 2025. And let's face it, until December, I was really failing on that. And then I read all 6 books of the Game Changers series and the Rachel Reed's first standalone book, which was, I want to say it was Time to Shine? Can't remember. But yes, so again, down by 2. They're still really close, and it's still really close to being like a sixth of my total reads. So even though I didn't actually technically meet my goals, I'm still pretty happy. Apart from the 121, I technically failed all 3 of my other goals. I'm still pretty happy with how I went. So the goals for 2026, the same, 120 books overall. Reduce my physical TBR, which I've already read 1 book from the TBR and have started another one, so fingers crossed. And try and improve on the amount of authors of colour and queer stories that I read, or queer characters that I read. So we will see how that goes. Yeah, but, you know, so essentially I'm reasonably happy with how I did in 2025. There weren't a lot of standout stats. Everything was pretty similar to what it was the year before. Yeah, so chugging along, we'll see if I can do some improvements this year. So there might be more gay hockey romances in my future now that I've started. We'll see. One thing I want to do this year is finish Becky Chambers' A Long Way to the Small Angry Planet series. I reread the first book last year. And so I would like to read the other 3 in that series. Not sure what else mini goals I might have. Like last year, for example, as a mini goal, I read the whole of Elliot de Bodard's Mindship series. So I might set myself some miniature goals like that. We'll see what comes across my feed that strikes my interest. And as usual, Hugo reading. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, that's my stats and goals from 2025 and my setting my goals from 2026. I shall see you all again really soon. Bye.